killed so many people. Um, everybody's heard about the Black Plague, and I'm using it in a way that we can educate people a little bit and let them know. And some of the same things that happened in this plague are the same basic things that happened in that plague. We were not planned for it. We were not sure of what was going on, and I use it essentially to kind of bring up some of the demons and the bad characters. And this is kind of how the Order of the Blade was started. Actually, a lot of the creatures that are undead are actually undead because they died from the red fever. We call it the Red Death as well. There's a lot of different names for it, but it's a plague that happened with the original Truans, and it killed like 80% of the population. It was pretty crazy, and it popped up over the years over and over again. What happens is, you get these things where you basically can turn into kind of a vampire type of state and you die, and that's kind of what happened with the red folk, is they kind of mixed it with some magic and some other things, and it created this really almost another race, but they were still red folk. And then what it did to the other races, because they were not red folk, they were not the original pure blood or strong enough, eventually what ended up happening to some of those races, the Truans were just basically killed. Like I said, there was a small percentage that lived. And then they kind of rebuilt everything. But from that point on, that's where all the other races were created. We had Sarah get involved later on, and he kind of created these assassins and a whole other guild area, the Order of the Blade. And from that point on, we have Sarah that was kind of feeding, getting fed on by ravens, and he's sitting here essentially ready to die, and these ravens somehow spread this disease to him. And he didn't realize it at the time, but it's what gave him these new powers that he never had before. And it's kind of crazy. It created a whole chain reaction of things going on, and that's kind of where the deep story of the hunt for the book comes from. And he really took it to the next level at that point. And Yurik himself really was helping him and guiding him through. Again, these are some storyboards as well as some generic ideas. These are some things that I wanted to add into the server that we talked about with people that they wanted to add, so we kind of put them all into it. We're still working on quests and NPCs that we can add into it to make it real easy for people to get all this information. Here's one of the videos that I made, or that I'm developing right now. It's kind of the simple, the tree kind of has a fruit that falls down. The fruit essentially grows its own plant, turns into a tree. This tree itself is kind of like the family tree, and it kind of turns into people in the bark, and then fades off. And I have a bunch of other ideas that I'm working on. And like I said, there's a hand that goes across. You've seen the video where it plants and the tree grows and all that kind of stuff. It's just beginning sessions of how we want to do our family tree. It's just a concept. Things that we factored in, things that we need for each area. This is kind of like the family tree again, but this is more of a sketch version. This is basically where it kind of started from Pavo and Haya, and how it grew off, and all of the different guilds, and how they were created. We have these dark mages, and we have these other types of guilds, that Pavo created, as well as that Yurik created. And the dwarfs were kind of created to protect the book, and then they kind of figured out that they were slaves, and they broke off, and they joined the good side, turned into some amazing heroes. That's why we have our king that we talk about. King Harry was one of those amazing people, as well as we have Dehip, which is one of our current people. He's not a king, but he is one of the most valuable people we've had, along with plenty of other people we've had that I'll explain to you and tell you guys all about later. But like I said, there's a lot more to the story. We just have to go through and do it one little day at a time. Some of the other people we had before that we wanted to include in this whole thing were basically characters from other stories that we liked, and obviously you always got to have your warriors and your emperors and your side of the magic that has to do with like your avatars and your elementers, and any kind of deep type of people that believe in magic, or just want to even hear a story about magic. They know there's so much to it, so I just want to add it all in there. And I'm trying to not only put that in there, but I like to have the building aspect of Minecraft, because that's obviously one of the original things that inspired me too. And so we'll have these kingdoms and these quests where they're going to be really unique areas in your own countries, and you'll be able to essentially control kind of how it's all ran. You can be your own little king in your own area, lord, or whatever you want to call yourself, and they'll have specific quests that you can actually create yourself, and we just have to go through and have everything approved so that it kind of fits along with the story, because I don't want it to go too far off in some crazy direction. And I kind of want to break each area down so you have kind of like a guild leader, a second in command, and I want to have like a a quality control person. He's like a guild regulator. And then you have your master planner, which is the person who's kind of helping plan out everything, which is obviously different than your guild leader because they are not necessarily an admin, but they basically, as an admin, you're going to lead, and you're going to have a lot of power. But with the master planner, you're going to work up to being a guild leader, but you're just going to plan out, maybe it's roads, cities, buildings, the guild itself, stories, all those types of things, quests, that type of stuff. And then you're going to have your supplier of your goods. And your supplier of your goods is basically, again, not a mod, but he's going to help out. He's going to have access to treasure chests and things like that to sell to people. And there's a lot of people that can help us out in this. One of my great friends is Squid. I also have a good friend named Jordan, and they're always on the server trying to help us out as much as they can. So, a lot of times, you can just ask one of them, and they have some history, and they know a lot about what's going on the server. Among all the other people that I mentioned, such as The Hip and Fish and Papa Smurf and all those guys. Again, these are lists of things that I wanted to add into the server. You can slow down the shot and look at everything and see what we've added. You're talking about doing some posters. I was thinking